if it wasn't discrimination. And you have the nerve, you have the nerve to sit there on your high horse and preach to these bottom-feeding dwellers who sit in the chat room, like Alliance Blog, who's been doing this for over a decade and still only got 2,000 followers. Yeah, I see you. You're a jabroni and a ham sandwich, and I don't want to hear from you ever again. About what the NWA is supposed to do. This is what pro wrestling is supposed to be. This is what the NWA is supposed to be. No. You don't tell anyone what the NWA is supposed to be, and you certainly don't lecture me about what the NWA is supposed to be. I made the NWA.
Here's the story now. If I see Kevin Owens, or even someone who looks like Kevin Owens, I drop them on sight.
Why are you excited to be here tonight?
Because I'm just excited.
Yeah. No other explanation. Now, I do believe, tell me the truth. Is it true that your dad has a ringside seat, but didn't get you guys ringside seats?
That is true, but it's because of his YouTube channel, okay? It's his YouTube, okay?
Her dad's an influencer. Let him go, guys. But your dad's awesome, right?
Yeah.
See, he's awesome. Yeah! Give it up for Claire. Thank you so much, Claire. High five. Yeah.
It's party time.
So, what day is it today?
Tuesday?
Wrong. It's NWA Day.
They want NWA? Let's give them NWA.
I was thinking that it might be a good idea if you and I formed an alliance.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Attention, everyone. Welcome to the greatest wrestling program in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
Okay, let's party.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
What is up, everybody? It's your boy Jay, and we are live, a little bit late, but we're live right here on youtube.com/allianceblog. You might also be watching on kick.com/the Alliance Blog. You might be watching on TikTok. But we are live. We are in person. We are talking NWA with you, the hashtag NWA fam. I just spent the last hour talking about all wrestling. Soto's watching from Flip. Well, we aren't on Flip right now. We're not live. But yeah, Flip. We're on Flip too. We are ever expanding this market share of pro wrestling talk. Right here, we're TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, Kick, Flip, and every other pro wrestling move that I can think of right now. That's where we're at. That Batman said we should get the Kevin Owens and Adam Cole collab. Batman will something we'll look into for sure. Slide in those DMs. I'm not afraid to talk to you guys. Noob is in the house. What is up, Noob? I appreciate you. You are here as part of the pre show on the YouTube, and then also Rick Del Santos in the house. What is up, Rick? And Idiotic Central, who said Drew is underrated. I don't know, man. I haven't seen Drew McIntyre do anything in a while. But we're here to talk NWA wrestling, and we're going to do that with you guys, both on TikTok and, like I said, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. We're here live, and it's been quite an interesting week. I mean, last week we were hinting. We knew that the NWA was about to crown a new Texas champion, and we saw that title being crowned this past weekend. Now, I don't know that it's an ugly belt. It's just there's no way around it. It is an ugly championship belt, but we do have a new Texas heavyweight champion in Izzy James. I'm trying to get the graphic up here for you guys. Give me a second, and if I can get it, I will. But Izzy James is your new NWA Texas champion. Now, that title is synonymous with the history of the National Wrestling Alliance because It's been held by some of the legendary pioneers of pro wrestling in the state of Texas. Most recently in the past years, guys like Jack Stane, guys like Tim Storm, Lance Archer, Charlie Haas. And that's just in the last few decades. I mean, there's been, you can go back to Tully Blanchard. You can go back to a lot of great talents who are former NWA World Champion, NWA World Texas Champion. I said it again, NWA Texas Champion. Now there's the belt. You can see that live on YouTube. I don't love the title. I think it's pretty terrible if you're asking me, but no one did ask me. No one asked for my Idiotic Central just said, name the ugliest belt in wrestling. Well, you're looking at it if you're on the YouTube channel. On our TikTok, they said, wasn't Nick Aldis the champion at one point? Yes, Nick Aldis is a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. And he wasn't a big fan of your boy J Cal, that's for sure. Bobby Batito's in the house. Rick Del Santos says, it looks like something out of a video game. I get this Art Deco vibe to it, and I don't quite understand it. I don't think it's all that great. I don't know why. And very similar to the Chicago style. It's like a minimalist. I look at, you guys can see it right now on YouTube. Oh, my Reservoir Dogs DVD. You can see on YouTube right now this NWA television title. I think it's one of the prettiest belts that they ever designed in the NWA. They used it for many similar designs over the years. It was the NWA national title during the pro wrestling organization era. It has been used as a lot of titles that is similar design. But I think it's very pretty, and I feel like that's what we want from an NWA title. Of course, the legendary 10 pounds of gold, you can't top that. To me, that is always going to be number one. It's such a unique look, and although there's a lot of title belts that are similar to that, that one is just the best as far as I'm concerned. So the direction that the NWA titles have gone recently over the last few years is kind of disappointing, to be, if I can't, I'm just going to be frank about it. They're disappointing. They don't look good. I did not care for this version of the national title. Did not care for the women's TV championship. I did not care for any of the Exodus Pro titles. I think are awful. So yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I don't know. Maybe my tastes are too high for the NWA. Real quick, Soto, I'm going to get to that Nick Aldis thing. If you hang on, I'll get to that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit more about Izzy James. Now, Izzy James sounds like a new name for the NWA. If you hadn't seen him before, it might be somebody that you think is new to the company. But he's actually been a part of the NWA in Texas for quite some time. Like he hasn't held the NWA titles. This is his first championship that he won on Sunday with Dog Pound Championship Wrestling. But he has historically been a figure for the Texas wrestling scene for quite some time, wrestling for our friends over at the iconic Heroes of Wrestling Excellence, DKM's wrestling promotion. We've seen him with Branded Outlaw Wrestling, which was the association with Jack Stane and Raymond Rowe back in their time in the NWA. He was part of NWA Texoma, wrestled really all over Texas, and he still is a very central figure for the Texas wrestling scene. Reality of Wrestling, most recently River City Wrestling. He shared the ring with guys like Sho Funaki. I know a lot of you guys remember him from his time in the WWE, but since he's been less of an active wrestler, he has spent more time in Texas training and doing some wrestling. So like Sho Funaki, Brian Wilcott, Mike Dell, Rudy Russo, Jack Stane, Tommy Dreamer. He had previously challenged for the World Junior Heavyweight Championship when it was held by Stephen Anthony. And he also challenged Rodney Mack for the NWA Elite title. And Rodney Mack is one of his mentors, obviously. He started appearing for Dog Pound Wrestling earlier this year with his first victory over Tino Valentino. Hasn't done a lot of matches for Texas, for NWA Texas, but I imagine that's going to change quite soon. And of course, NWA Texas, the territory under the Lightning One era, was designated as such when Dog Pound Championship Wrestling, that is the promotion that kind of kicked off Texas for the NWA. It's the promotion that is owned by Jazz and the aforementioned Rodney Mack, where they've trained their students at, and also with TSW, both promotions representing the state of Texas. One of them in Forney, where TSW films its matches at, and then Dog Pound is, I think right now they're doing stuff more like in the San Antonio area. And for all intents and purposes, Rodney Mack and Jazz have had a hand in training a lot of great talented individuals. The least of which is former world junior heavyweight champion Kevin Douglas. So, Izzy James is in good company, and he's got some big shoes to fill when it comes to the Texas Heavyweight Championship. But we'll have to kind of wait and see what's next for him. As it seems right now, we haven't even seen Texas style of wrestling was supposed to have a lot of TV filmed in the can, and it was supposed to be on a local streaming service in Texas that was supposed to be available to everyone. And we haven't seen any of those matches yet. So it's kind of hard to get excited about a title. It's hard to get excited about a promotion when it doesn't seem like they have reached its full potential yet. So again, we'll just have to kind of wait and see what's going to happen next. Now, to answer Soto's question about Nick Aldis and why Nick Aldis doesn't care for your boy Jay. So you got to understand that I have been blogging about the NWA since 2004. That's when I first started covering the National Wrestling Alliance. I was working for a little known website called SoCal Uncensored. By working, I mean I just wrote opinion pieces about the NWA. At that point in time, TNA Wrestling was associated with the NWA, and it was kind of a cool time. It was a cool time to be a wrestling fan. And if you did some digging in those early 2000s, if you were like me, you kind of thought that the WCW absorbed the NWA. Like growing up, when the NWA changed its name to WCW, that's what I believed, but that's not the case. The NWA, WCW was an NWA promotion. It was Jim Crockett Promotions. And when Ted Turner bought Jim Crockett Promotions, they changed the name to WCW, World Championship Wrestling. That was the name of the TV show. With that being said, the NWA had still been going on continuously ever since then. And whether it was in 93 when WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling left the NWA, in 94 when there was a Jim Crockett Jr. promoting the NWA in Texas and Dallas, to be specific, or in early 95, 96 when NWA Eastern States Wrestling Eastern Championship Wrestling, which would later become ECW. That lineage of the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship was continuous. And I've been talking about that since 2004. That's just to lay the foundation here to talk about when Nick Aldis was World's Heavyweight Champion. He won the title on December 9th, 2017 in, I believe it was in New Jersey, but I'm not exactly sure where, for Combat Zone Wrestling. He defeated Tim Storm to win the 10 pounds of gold. Now, a lot of people believe that Nick Aldis would be the first world champion recognized by the Lightning One era, but that wasn't the case. It was actually Tim Storm was the first world's heavyweight champion. He lost the title to Nick Aldis. A lot of people thought Nick Aldis was going to come in and win the title in their very first encounter. It actually took several encounters before Aldis would become champion. Now, Aldis's first run as champion was the thing that legends are made of. Like, he literally won the title in December. By January, he had defended the title 10 times in the United Kingdom, more than any other NWA World Champion had defended in the UK. Like, it was significant. And then he would take the title. He would take the title to China under the United Wrestling Network Championship Wrestling from Hollywood banner. He'd take the title to Australia. And the most prolific title defense he had in 2018 was against Cody Rhodes at All In. The biggest spotlight was put right there on Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes. And leading up to that match, Nick Aldis did everything you'd want your world's heavyweight champion to do. He would defend it in every state. He would defend it in every promotion. He was a fighting champion. His promos were excellent. He was a 5-tool athlete. There was not a single person better to be world's heavyweight champion than Nick Aldis in 2018. However, once he lost the title, something changed, and the whole outlook of the NWA changed. At this point, they went from being a company that just recognized this world title into a full-fledged wrestling company. And by 2019, when there was the NWA Power, now Aldis only was without the title for a few months. Cody had one title defense in Ring of Honor. He appeared with the title at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He challenged for the IWGP US Championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling while still holding the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. But all of this to say that the lore of Nick Aldis kind of slowed down. He wasn't taking the title everywhere like he used to. Now, he did show up in Ring of Honor as world champion, and that was really, really cool. But then the pandemic hit. And this is where things sucked for everybody, right? If you were not the WWE, then things sucked for everybody. And you had Aldis, who prior to COVID was taking the title everywhere. Now his schedule was way chilled out. And you saw champions from the NWA still wrestling. You know, you had at the time, our women's world champion was Thunder Rosa. She was still defending the title at Mission Pro, which, yeah, that's the promotion she owns. But she also was defending that title for the United Wrestling Network. 2 title defenses there. She was still defending the title in other wrestling promotions that were not owned by her or the NWA. Trevor Murdoch, who was your NWA national champion, he defended the title at South SWE Fury, which I believe was Southwest Wrestling Entertainment. And he was still putting the title on the line. He was wrestling for the United Wrestling Network. He was out there getting that belt exposed. And Nick Aldis, who at that point in time had been the face of the NWA, kind of disappeared. Now, I get it. It was COVID-19. It was time to, take a knee, and a lot of promotions did, but it felt very weird that your world's heavyweight champion, who had been everywhere and done everything, now was in the back. And once the NWA did come back to promoting regularly, his schedule also reflected that. He was only working NWA events, rarely working outside of the NWA, and a lot of his title matches then became very watered down for a watered down wrestling product that was NWA Power. So when I talk about Nick Aldis as world's heavyweight champion, I have nothing but good things to say about his first run as champion. His second run, he was coasting on what he had already done. Those international tours were fewer and far between. He did make an interesting title defense in Poland, and I do give him credit for being the first champion to take the title to Poland in a long time. But outside of that, there was not a whole lot going on with the world's heavyweight champion. And I was very critical of him at that time, saying, come on, man, get out there and show the world what you are, what the NWA is. Show us who you are as a champion. The guy that faced Colt Cabana in China, in Wenchao, China. The guy that faced Cody Rhodes in Chicago, Illinois. The guy who took the 10 pounds of gold to the UK, to Australia. I mean, he literally, Bronson Reed was one of his challengers when he took the title to Australia. And we just got this not overwhelming, an underwhelming performance as world champion. And I called him out on it, and he didn't like that. He was not happy with my comments. So why was Nick Aldis not vibing with me in that video? It's because I was very critical of him. I was there when he wrestled in China. I was there for his title defenses in China. I was there when he defended the title against Marty Scurll at Ring of Honor and the NWA's Crockett Cup in 2018. I was there when he defended the title against Tim Storm at the first Power tapings. I was there when he did a lot of these things. When he first challenged for the world title in Southern California, I was there. And I'm not saying I am the guy, right? Because I'm not. But I've been to a lot of events, and I feel like my history with the NWA affords me the opportunity to, move my lips a little bit more than anybody else. And when Nick Aldis took a knee, he took a knee. And he didn't like hearing that. So anyway, I hope that answered the question. is the recording that you have in your intro after all that. Yeah. So that was leading up to another title defense that he was having. And I was just, your boy Jay was very adamant about what an NWA World Champion should be. And if you guys missed it in the beginning of the show, I'll just play it one more time so you can all hear it. And that gives me a chance to get a drink of water.
If it wasn't discrimination. And you have the nerve. No. You have the nerve to sit there on your high horse and preach to these bottom-feeding dwellers who sit in the chat room, like Alliance Blog, who's been doing this for over a decade and still only got 2,000 followers. Yeah, I see you. You're a jabroni and a ham sandwich, and I don't want to hear from you ever again about what the NWA is supposed to do. This is what pro wrestling is supposed to be. This is what the NWA is supposed to be. No. You don't tell anyone what the NWA is supposed to be, and you certainly don't lecture me about what the NWA is supposed to be. I made the NWA.
He made the NWA. Dude was coasting on his laurels. Anyway, that's enough of that. I put it back in the intro because I thought it was funny, and I thought you guys would get a kick out of it. I'm going to leave it there until otherwise, but and also, I'll take the little bit of rub it gives me. And then Soto, to answer your last question about it, he was talking to another group, some gentlemen that I would call friends. They were called the Bearded Trio. They were, I don't even remember what they called the show. It was, This is Pro Wrestling. At first it was called This is the NWA, but later they changed the name to This is Pro Wrestling. It was Gary Horn. It was Dr. Stinson. And it was, I'm blanking on my other friend's name, which is sad. Will from the internet. And so they were talking to him, but then I was in the chat and I think I said like, oh, great, this guy isn't going to shut up or something. And then he cut the promo on me. Yeah. Back to that. We're going to get to some more of the chat here. Bobby Petito says, I saw that Matt Cardona cut a promo on Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling on the X account and called out Thom Latimer for their July 5th show. That is very interesting. I did see the same video, Bobby, and I think it's very interesting where that direction could go. Matt Cardona has been facing some top tier talent, and a lot of that has come out of Maple Leaf Pro. Bishop Dyer, formerly known as Baron Corbin in the WWE, Stu Grayson from formerly of AEW, and now looks like Matt Cardona for July 5th. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is doing an excellent job of treating Thom Latimer with dignity and respect, putting some grade A competition in there, and making the NWA World Heavyweight Championship look really good. Really, really good. Soto, I used to be cool with Adam Pearce, but we haven't spoken to each other in quite some time. I back in 23 let me into the an episode of Raw, hooked me up with some tickets, so that was cool. But we kind of we've drifted apart, and I don't wish any ill will of the guy. Certainly, I celebrate his time as NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but I don't feel like we would be considered what you'd say close anymore. Yeah, Thom Latimer also performs in an indie promotion in Michigan. We talked about that recently where he faced Heath Slater. I think it's called like TSR, something like that. He had Heath Slater there. No, he had what's his name? Silas Young. IWR, Insane Wrestling Revolution. I knew I'd get there. He faced Silas Young, who's a former NWA mainstay in his own right, former Ring of Honor television champion. And and then he also faced Heath Slater at the Squared Circle Expo, back in May. And all this before he faced Rhino at the Crockett Cup. Sean Megas, the great Hisa's here. Gonna shout out my guy Hisa. Again, Hisa hadn't done his stuff documenting the history of pro wrestling title histories and all that good stuff, there probably wouldn't be an Alliance blog today. So shout out to Hisa. Always good to see him in the chat. Thank you, Bobby, for liking the video. Again, if you guys like, comment, subscribe. It helps the audience grow, man. It helps me keep this community growing. I mean, we've got people like Zach Velocity on TikTok who's watching us there. Soto from TikTok, who might even be in the YouTube chat right now. I'm trying to catch as wide as net as we can so we could talk wrestling. And of course, I'm trying to help the NWA. I'm trying to give them a place where people can talk about the NWA. Sean Mega says, Izzy James a good talent? Yeah, I mean, he's a solid talent. I haven't seen enough of him to say anything bad, but I mean, he's been around for a while. And we're talking like he spent the last decade working for promotions in the Texas area. And hopefully this is a stepping stone. Hopefully this is an opportunity for him to step out of the Texas wrestling scene. Maybe he gets opportunities to showcase what he's got on Power. I mean, we're seeing guys from Exodus Pro, Dante Casanova, who's the current Midwest champion, and PB Smooth, who was the champion before him. Both of them have now been showcasing their talents on Power. Silas Mason, who has been the JCP champion, has been regularly featured on Power. Juventud Guerrero was the last Crossfire champion that I remember, and he did have one appearance on Power. So who knows? I mean, we don't really know what that's going to all lead to, but just seeing, the opportunity is there, and when these opportunities arise, hopefully these guys step up to the challenge. Who would I like to see go against Natty Neidhart next in the NWA? Well, I don't think Natty's going to do any more matches for the NWA. I feel like if that was going to happen, they would have put the belt on her. But as far as Natty goes, I mean, if she were to have another match in the NWA, Tiffany Nieves comes to mind. Also, Natalia Markova. Although, personally, I would have liked them to have booked a match with Markova and Neidhart versus Kenzie and Kylie. They kind of set up something at Crockett Cup where you could see Natty Neidhart maybe coming back to an NWA match where she would need a partner taking on the Page sisters. So that would have made a lot of sense. Over Metal, our buddy Matt says, Cardova versus Thom. Are we at the point where Thom's defenses resume in number 2 in the Lightning 1 area, or is it at EC3 at number 2? I think you're asking me who's had better defenses. And for that discussion, I mean, we have to look at EC3 gets a lot of credibility in my mind because he did take the title to Australia. He did take the title to South America. I don't know where he defended it. Maybe he never did, but he said he did. But he also defended the title in All Japan Pro Wrestling. And I know that, a lot of people over glamorize wrestling in Japan and make it seem like this holy ground. And that I'm less impressed by the fact that a world heavyweight champion, an NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, took the title back to All Japan for the first time since 1989. Some of you guys weren't even born then yet, right? And the last person to do that was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So that carries weight with me. And I know that it's not the same All Japan it was when Ricky Steamboat defended the title there. And it wasn't the same level of opponent. But you have to give EC3 credit for doing that. Because we haven't seen anybody do that since. Nick Aldis had taken the title to Poland, right? Nick Aldis took the title to China. Jeff Jarrett took the title to South Korea. Aldis and Latimer have taken the title to the UK lots of times. Taking the title to Australia is still a phenomenal feat. There's no connection between what's happening in Australia and the National Wrestling Alliance. For them to book you, it's because they want that title there. And I really celebrate that. So which one is better? I mean, what Thom has been able to do in the last few months has been pretty outstanding. Again, with victories over Bishop Dyer, victories over Rhino, victories over Heath, victories over Silas Young, victories over J.R. Kratos at the cheese sandwich festival in Sacramento. I mean, he's got some serious victories over there as World's Heavyweight Champion, but so did EC3. I mean, EC3 had victories over Silas Mason. We're getting notified that I have to go back over here to TikTok. All right. Well, I thought, okay, well, here we are. So yeah, I mean, it's 1A and 1B right now. EC3 has made the concerted effort. We see him teaming with PB Smooth. That's going to continue. They have matches scheduled for Exodus Pro they just had, and then also elsewhere. So I did move it. So do I move the puzzle piece. So I don't want to say that Thom is blowing EC3 out of the water, but I mean, you got to celebrate both these guys for what they've done as world champion. Mega says Latimer needs better opponents on Power. Maple Leaf Pro and other promotions are okay, but Power is the focus. Yes, I agree with that, Sean Mega. We had Rhino at Crockett Cup, so we'll see that on a future episode of Power. You know, Hammerstone was right there. I kind of wish somehow they could have done a match between those two. That would have lent a lot of credibility to Thom as world's heavyweight champion. And who knows what's going to happen next? I mean, maybe we'll see Thom with a top-tier opponent for the 77th. Obviously, they have been able to secure some pretty decent talent for their last two shows. So who knows? Maybe we'll see something big for him next. Now, Willie Bowen, who usually has that Tyrus joke of the day, he hit me with one a little bit later today, but it says Tyrus will be in a new TV series. It's called Dinner's Ready. Work on that one, Willie. That one, you have some room for growth on that. Willie also says he'd like to see Natty Neidhart versus Tiffany Nieves. I think that'd be a good match. And this is why Nick Aldis is the best. All right, noob. I see how it is. Natty versus Max would be better because Natty needs a win at some point. Yeah, well, Natty should have. Look, for all intents and purposes, Natty got the moral victory against Kenzie Page. Kenzie kept the title. Natty looked amazing. And that footage alone should be on Triple H's desk saying, do something with this chick because she's phenomenal. I believe Natty versus Natalia will still be the money match. I'd like to see that one too. I think that's a big deal. Soto's back and forth. So Soto also asked in TikTok, when is Kenzie jumping to the WWE? And I'm saying, like, you know, she's already been put over by Chelsea Green. Now Natty Neidhart faced her and had only good things to say. I imagine that I won't be shocked when Kenzie gets that call up to NXT because I don't see her going to AEW. I could see her definitely fitting into that WWE, especially when you see like the path is there for, you know, Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez. You know, none of them are super huge dominating women. They're, you know, pretty average sized females. And, you know, Kenzie Page would fit in with them very easily. Wrestling Classic says EC3 taking it All Japan was a huge deal in my book. Agreed. 100% agreed. Thom is doing a stellar job, looks the part, and a workhorse. Both agree, man. I agree with both of those sentiments. I feel like what EC3 did as world champion should not be understated. And they got lazy with booking him on the NWA and in Power. Like, it got pretty bad at points, but by and large, like, he did a really good job carrying that title, and especially getting the bad taste of Tyrus out of our mouth. Like, that was a very big deal, and that took some work. Willie says Sacramento or Bakersfield, California should be NWA Pro Wrestling areas on the West Coast. Bakersfield would make a lot of sense to me. If anyone was asking, I think Bakersfield would be where I'd put it. Colby was wasted in the three-way at Crockett Cup. He either rebuilds or he moves on. I don't know how much longer we're going to have Colby in the NWA. I mean, there was thought that he was signed, sealed, and delivered to NXT, and then that didn't happen. So does he come back to the NWA at some point? I mean, does he go back to NXT? That's what I meant to say. They're always looking for new talents, right? But, you know, what makes Colby interesting on the indies is not what would allow him to be interesting in the WWE. And, you know, getting out of his pops' shadow, like, granted, he's still a Carino. He still goes by the old school moniker that his father did. But, yeah, that match he didn't need to be in that match. And I felt it took away from it. Rick Del Santo says EC3 is uninteresting to me all around. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'm not the biggest EC3 fan. And I feel like his performance at the Crockett Cup was more inspiring than I saw him when he wrestled in Texas, defending the title against Sam Adonis. I feel like that match wasn't well received, I don't think, by the fans in attendance or when it was on Power. I was not super overwhelmed by most of EC3's title defenses, except for when he defended the title down here in California against Honest John, who was a much smaller opponent. He made Honest John look like $1 million. Which NWA wrestler you see on the WWE's radar? Well, first and foremost, I think if you're WWE, you're looking at the youth movement, right? And I know that you're a huge Markova fan, but I feel like she's probably tapping out at I think she's like 36. And although 36 is still very young for a woman as a pro wrestler, you're getting towards, especially in the WWE's system, you're getting towards the end of your career at 36, which is crazy. I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but WWE tends to keep them young in that women's division. So I don't think Markova fits there. I think Kenzie and Kylie certainly have to be at least a thought in somebody's mind about potential NXT talents. We know that Booker T has said lots of positive things about Tiffany Nieves. Heck, she's wrestling his wife Charmel at Reality of Wrestling. I don't know if that match has already happened or will happen, but obviously Booker T's very familiar with Tiffany Nieves. And then also Tiffany Nieves' tag team partner, Valentina Rossi, I think is really, really good and it's totally underrated. And I can't wait to see what happens with her in the NWA in the future. In terms of like male talent, I don't have a specific knowledge of who's on whose radar, but I would have to imagine that Kerry Morton is on the WWE's radar just because he is the son of Kerry Morton. He's got a lot of the fundamentals, and it seems like that guy gets booked in a lot of different places. I also say like Silas Mason is a guy who I'm very much impressed with, and I think he has a huge upside if that happens. It should happen. If it doesn't, I think that's a huge miss point. All right, so thanks for hanging out, brother. You have a good one. Willie Bowen says, I'd rather see EC3 with the 10 pounds of gold instead of watching Tyrus with the 10 pounds of gold and in the wrestling ring. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that, Willie. I was never a Tyrus fan, like not even once. I thought he was not the right choice to put the world title on. I thought he was not the right choice to put the TV title on. I don't think he was the right choice to take the belt off of the Pope. But nevertheless, that's what we got. If Adonis doesn't fit into WWE's AAA vision, NWA should sign him and push the hell out of him. See, I have never... Look, I like the idea of Sam Adonis. I like the idea of who he is and was. Like, you guys don't know, but Sterling James Keenan was a big name in the NWA before going to NXT and becoming Corey Graves. And, of course, that's Sam Adonis' brother, who also had some pretty big matches in the NWA East territory for Jim Mitchell's NWA East. And I feel like, back then, yes. But every time I've seen Sam Adonis in the last few years, whether it be in the NWA ring or in All Japan, not All Japan, in the Lucha Libre AAA ring or the Crash, I have not been impressed. And I want to like Sam Adonis. I feel like he's got the right strategy, the right thought processes. But every time I see him in the ring, I'm not impressed. So if you sign Adonis, go for it. But like, push the hell out of him, man. I just haven't seen him be worthy of a push yet. Do you think Scott D'Amore will book more NWA wrestlers on Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling? I could see it happening, Bobby. Especially like, he's using Anderson and Gallows as like a Bullet Club-esque tag team. And, I honestly feel like Knox and Murdoch would fit in great on any roster as a tag team. I think they would be very, very good. And if Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling needed a solid tag team, even Blunt Force Trauma, I feel like has some mileage outside of the NWA. I feel like in the NWA, they have done all that they can really do at this point. But I feel like outside of the NWA, there's a lot of opportunity for both Carnage and Damage as Blunt Force Trauma. Of course, the Immortals, I think, would be really good almost in any ring. Again, I mean, they're like a modern day version of the Legion of Doom. Putting them in a Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling ring would certainly give them a very dominant tag team. But again, is D'Amore interested in doing that? And then in terms of other wrestlers in the NWA that are not tag teams, like single wrestlers, Kerry Morton is a name that's always going to stand out to me. because of the Morton last name, because of what he's been able to do in a short amount of time as a pro wrestler. He's still very young too. I don't think he's 25 yet. Silas Mason is another guy who I just think like that's the guy that you could put a rocket on, and he could be the next big thing in the NWA if they just allowed him to be it. EC3 is a guy that I think makes a lot of sense. Again, historically, his time with TNA Wrestling, former Impact World Champion, former NXT World Champion, held the 24/7 title once or twice. He's definitely somebody I would push and use to represent my brand if I was the NWA. And, those are just off the top of my head. Of course, like there's guys like Spencer Slade and Mondo, who I think would be really, really good as a tag team outside of the NWA. I really think Daisy Kills is really underrated. I think AJ Kazana as a singles is very underrated. We haven't seen enough out of Mims, and I think very highly of Mims. So there's a lot of guys who I think could do something interesting, but the way that the NWA is using them right now, it just not doing a whole lot for them. I never cared for Tyrus. That's right, Bobby. That's right. Markova is amazing as of late. Hopefully she'll win the world's title at the 77. Maybe you should interview her when she wins the Burke. Noob, I would love to interview Markova, even if she doesn't have the world's women's championship. Speaking of interviews, next Tuesday, originally it was supposed to be today, but next Tuesday I'll be having an interview with the former women's television champion, Big Mama. Wrestling with Classics says Tyrus is a heater at best, just my opinion. I've never thought Tyrus was much of anything, to be quite honest. Like, I get the whole, he was a security guard for Snoop Dogg. He's a big, intimidating fella. Yeah, but he sucks in the ring, and I've never seen him look good in the ring. Even when he was the Funkasaurus. Get the funk out of here, Tyrus. Like, I just never really thought much of him as a wrestler. Like, I bought his action figure as a joke. I bought his figure as a joke, guys, because that was your world's heavyweight champion. Not no mo. You can bring in someone from NWA to go against Josh Alexander at Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, too. If I'm going to bring one wrestler to represent the NWA that is not Thom Latimer or EC3, it is Silas Mason, for sure, with 100% certainty. Now, Spencer Slade is a good person to put in that spot, too. And like I said, there's a lot of guys in the promotion I think would make a lot of sense. But I feel like Silas Mason is the it guy for the NWA. Yeah, Tyrus is a heater at a picnic at a buffet banquet. That's what I'm talking about, Willie. Good on you, brother. Good on you. Wrestling with Classic says, yeah, Knox and Murdoch are incredible. They could work anywhere and do good business. I've never seen Knox look good in a wrestling ring until he started teaming with Murdoch. And that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. That's my thought. And, it is what it is. Now, let me delete your comment. Sorry about that. Just delete that and do that. Bobby Batito says, I miss JTG in an NWA ring. Yeah, him and the Pope both. And like every time it gets close to Crockett Cup, I kind of hope and I kind of think like maybe this year they'll bring in Pope and JTG back because they were pretty fun at the Crockett Cup, and I think that was 22. But we have been disappointed ever since. Now, I do want to acknowledge that the NWA has announced that their next television taping will be taking place in Tampa on July 1st. Well, they'll be doing it's on a Tuesday, oddly enough. I wonder if wait a minute, hold on a second. 7 p.m. Eastern Bell Time on a Tuesday, July 1st. I'm not saying this is the case, but what if that let's see, that's only that's less than a month away. No, it's more than a month away. It's like 6 weeks away. What if the NWA announced that as a live television event? Oh, wait a minute. 4th of July week. Very interesting. Now, it's not being advertised. It's being experience the NWA live. It's not saying it's a live event, but could you imagine? That'd be pretty cool, right? If the NWA kicked off July, if they kicked off the road to the 77th anniversary show with a live event. Very interesting. I don't have any more details on the card more than that, but it looks very interesting to me. Very interesting indeed. Oh, I just saw Kyle Davis retweeted that nothing will prepare you for this week's Power. And I love it. Good on you for taking the opportunity, Kyle Davis. I'm going to just shout him out real quick. Chris Shoemaker on TikTok says, no love for Knox from Aces and Eights, huh? Look, I'll be honest with you. So for a lot of you people who know Knox from Aces and Eights or his work in the NWA or his very brief run in the WWE, I saw Knox on the Independents. I saw Knox as part of the Urban Cowboys. I saw Knox when he was breaking into the business, and that's when he had the most enthusiasm I ever saw. I think WWE killed his enthusiasm when he left. He was a shell of what he was on the Independents, and then seeing him in Aces and Eights, I wasn't a big fan just because I was so disappointed by his run in the WWE, and he just felt like forced in Aces and Eights. And the one thing that I'll say about Knox right now that I wouldn't have said when he was in the Cardona family, but now he looks like he's having fun out there. And you could tell when he's out there wrestling, he looks like he's having fun. So yeah, I like Knox now. Rick Del Santo backs me up on that one. I never cared for Knox until he came to the NWA. I think he shined a little bit more than he did in WWE or TNA. 100%. And it wasn't with the Cardona family. It's really his partnership with Murdoch. And it's interesting to think about because Murdoch's last super notable tag team partner was also a cowboy in Lance Cade. And I'm not saying that Cade is Knox by any stretch of the imagination, but you ever watch Knox and Murdoch out there? They look like they're enjoying themselves. Knox looks like he's having fun in wrestling again, and that's something that we hadn't seen for a while either. So, props to both of them. Wrestling with Classic. I was there at those UPW shows. The Urban Outlaws versus the Ballard brothers or the Hawaiian Lion and the Navajo Warrior or Native Blood. Like, I was there for those, man. You bring up UPW, man, you're talking about my wrestling lore. My days of, my first independent wrestling show was in my high school gym when I was like a sophomore in high school, freshman in high school. But my first real experience in the independents was seeing the Hardy Boys show up at UPW. Natalia Markova or Kylie Page would be great contenders for Giselle Shaw for the MLP Women's Championship. Yeah, I see. Kylie is the right answer too. I think Kylie is very tenacious in the ring. I think Kylie has more it right now than Kenzie does, but I think Kenzie is more polished. And I think by the time Kylie's Kenzie's age, Kylie's going to be a much, much better wrestler than Kenzie. And that's not to poop on Kenzie. I think Kenzie's phenomenal. But, Kenzie's walking so that Kylie can run. Just my opinion. You could call me, you could say I'm wrong. I don't know. That's how I see it. Whew. I've been doing a lot of talking today, guys. I'm sorry if I sound a little winded. It's because mostly I am. But we did talk about the NWA television, the NWA TV taping that's scheduled for July 1st. We talked about the new Texas champion and Izzy James, formerly known as Gregory James. Now tonight, the NWA is going to have a match that is, I don't know, man. Like, again, I want to celebrate the NWA. I want to talk about the NWA. I want to be happy about the NWA. But a Mint Julip match at Aron Stevens, it's like, come on, man. This is kind of ridiculous talk, right? Like, why can't we just get a straight up title match with a guy who is a phenomenal wrestler? Aron Stevens has the it factor, not the shit factor. The guy can go in the ring. We know this. So why aren't we getting that version of him? Instead, we're getting the version of him that's like watered down. That's a comedy act. Now, I remember too when they brought him back post COVID, where he basically was a comedy act up until that match with Nick Aldis for the World Heavyweight Championship. And they took a very serious approach to him. And I feel like the fans were there for it. They were digging it. And, you know, look, the last time that Aron Stevens was an active in-ring combatant for the NWA was at for Power. Let's say for Power, because he has wrestled on non-televised matches. He has done some wrestling on the independents. But let's not forget the last time that we saw him wrestle was at teaming with Natalia Markova against Arez and La Hiedra for AAA at the World is a Vampire Tour at Foro Sol in La Ciudad. The last time Aron Stevens had an actual match that was televised on Power was 2023. And I'm not saying that Stevens won't have a hell of a match if he's takes the match seriously, but I'm just not respecting the NWA enough to give us that match. Stevens is a phenomenal competitor, but he ain't there no more. That ain't the same guy. The guy that got over with Damian Sandow, that's not him. It's not to say that he can't still get things over. It's not to say that he still can't have interesting storylines, but the guy who was a solid wrestler, who was a world championship style of wrestler, the guy who, would wrestle in Puerto Rico, the guy that wrestled for the NWA at the 60th anniversary show, that guy seemingly is gone. And it's sad. I get it. He's getting old too. Let me pump the brakes. Not old, older. He's getting older. He's only got so many more matches on his bump card left. But a Mint Julip match? Wrestling Classics is just reading my mind today. Like, I can't unsee the comedy act. Yeah. It was funny to see him with, the question mark. That whole thing was funny, but it kind of devalued him as a pro wrestler. Then when he came back and won the tag titles with Kratos, I was getting excited to see, maybe we're going to get that, same dynamic, that same Aron Stevens. And no, it was watered down yet again when he dropped the title, or when he wrestled Nick Aldis and lost. I feel like that was the end of it. And then we got this. You had this uber baby face in Stevens with Kratos, who still wanted to be heel. It seems like they've swapped places since then. But I still don't. I don't dislike him as a manager. I feel like he still can bring something to the table, but why are we putting him in a world title match? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then also tonight on Power, we're supposed to have the Southern Six challenging for the NWA U.S. tag titles against Country Gentlemen in a match that is supposed to be a no disqualification. Now, look, I know it's kind of a bit of a spoiler alert, but the Southern Six did arrive at the Crockett Cup with those tag titles in tow. I don't know when they win those titles. I don't know if it's going to be at Hard Times or if it's tonight on Power, but we know that the Country Gentlemen aren't the U.S. Tag Team Champions when we get to Crockett Cup. And so this match might be laying the foundation for that match that'll maybe take place at Hard Times. I'm not entirely sure, but and then David Valentine says that XPW needs to be a territory for the NWA. And I know you like saying things, Dave, that you're just trying to push somebody's buttons, but XPW shouldn't even be a thing anymore. It ran its course. Rob Black is a filthy human being. I saw something the other day that I would never watch XPW again because of it. XPW needs to just go away. It just needs to go away. It's filth. It's garbage. And I don't need to see it again. Wrestling Central to invade the NWA. From what Billy has even said publicly, it looks like Wrestling Central is going to be a home for the vault of the Lightning One era of the NWA. Now, I'd be pleasantly surprised if they do some first run content on Wrestling Central. There's even been some overtones that maybe there might be a WOW versus NWA event on Wrestling Central, and that would be kind of cool. But I'm not going to hold my breath for any of that. I'm not. It would be fun, but let's also be realistic about what we have here. this is an opportunity for the NWA to grab some eyeballs with the Vault. They're still producing shows on X. Supposedly, they might be running the show also on Instagram. That's what I heard earlier today. I don't know if that's true or not, but Danny Dills retweeted it. So I guess we'll just wait and see. And, Bobby, I appreciate you too. Thanks for hanging out with me. Wrestling with Classics also says it seems like it's hard to come back from comedy and be taken seriously again in wrestling. There's been very few people who have been able to successfully do it. I mean, look, if you're going to the WWE, which I know doesn't make a lot of people happy, but if you think about WWE, Cactus Jack, Mankind, Mick Foley, Dude Love, I mean, literally he had the opportunity to wrestle as 4 different personalities at the Rumble that one year. He's maybe the 1 or 2 guy that was able to do that. There hasn't been a lot of comedy wrestlers that can go back to being serious. And I get that. David Valentine says XPW has new ownership now, but I don't know what's going on with him, though. The last thing I saw is literally a guy taking a knife and cutting somebody open, and that does not belong in pro wrestling. That's assault, brother. He should be, the person who did it should be in jail. The person who had it done to them should sue. XPW should never be seen again. It's filth. There, I said it. Rick Del Santo says, let's hope this service actually works out. Doesn't seem Billy can make up his mind as to where to post the show. Yeah, it feels like they don't know what they want to do with Power. And I think what Billy's waiting for is somebody to come out and say, hey, look, let me pay you to produce this wrestling show. The problem is I don't think it's a show good enough right now to be paid for people to watch. I mean, if right now, if Power today, the Power that you're watching right now, if you had to pay $10 a week to watch it, would you? I wouldn't. I wouldn't pay that. Chris Shoemaker said Chad Gable, but they won't let him. Chad Gable might be the one exception to that, honestly. Kurt Angle, too. Yeah, okay. Kurt Angle was a guy that was very, very silly, and they turned him into a very serious competitor. Willie Bowen says Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. Yeah, that's another one. Willie Bowen said, what happened to Coastal? Coastal's still running. All right, guys. It has been a great day to talk wrestling with you, my hashtag NWA fam. If you're watching on TikTok, appreciate you hanging out with me for the last 2 hours. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll be back on Thursday on this very channel on YouTube talking NWA Power with the returning DKM, the returning Jaden, and the returning Professor Rick Del Santo. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you'll join us for that. And until next time, we will see you guys at I just got to find the video, matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.